Hello and very warm welcome to all of you. Today we are going to discuss OTT platforms and its current and proposed regulation mechanism in India. So let me take you to the index page straight and show you the points to be discussed in the upcoming slides. What is OTT and why is it in use? Why the regulation is in demand? What is the present mechanism of regulation in India and the world? Why should it be regulated? And why the OTTs should not be regulated? The important aspects of judgment and law. So the first point is why what is OTT and why is it in use? So OTT stands for over the top platform. An over the top platform is a streaming media service offered directly to the viewers via internet. It bypasses cable, broadcast, and satellite television platforms. It could be related to the subscription based video on demand service. It is normally accessed through websites, through PCs, mobile phones, as well as smart TVs integrated with these platforms. So these OTTs are broadly classified into three groups. First is multimedia application games, oblique YouTube based. Second is apps based. And third is dynamic services like call, SMS, and MMS based. So when we talk about Amazon Prime, Netflix, Hotstar, Old Balaji, MX Player, Sony Live, so on and so forth, these are application based OTT platforms. So during the Corona period, when most of the part of the world was really under lockdown, OTT platforms immensely helped the locked and stranded people by entertaining them with infotainment. As all the multiplexes were closed, therefore, movies were directly released on them. Its business got a huge boost and spiraled during this period. However, the contents provided over it brought many contentions with it, since the materials were uncensored. Now, why the regulations of OTT is in demand? So, first is adult content, the violence and abusive languages, sensitive materials for child, hurting religious sentiments. TV and broadcasters are under the ambit of the censor board, and here the net neutrality clause is being discussed. Scope of spreading fake news is another relevant point. Present mechanism acts late when the damage is already done is another point, and last but not the least, institutional mechanism is required. So let us discuss all these points one by one. So it has been observed that most of the web series and exclusive contents of these OTT platforms are filled with explicit adult content. It contains extremely sexual materials sometimes, which is against the Indian established value system. Most of the OTT contents nowadays are proliferating violence and abuse laden content, and it may have adverse impact on the society at large, which finds its role models in these programs. The material sometimes contains sensitive child and even pornographic content as well, which is again breach of the law. It has also been observed that in name of the creative art freedom, religious sentiments are put at the stake and are hurt, and it puts the entire societal religious harmony at stake. In extremely diversified culture like India, it becomes an onus of the digital media content creator to be very careful while broadcasting such content. Another significant point being made in this regard is when cinemas, small screens, and other broadcasters are in the ambit of censor board, then why these platforms are left out? The broadcasters are subject to various rule regulations are made to pay hefty fee to air their content. Therefore, there must be a level playing field for all. Most of us are aware that FM channels are not allowed to broadcast the news content even today, looking at the sensitive nature of it. But contrary to that, there is no guideline for the same on OTT platforms. Thousands of news channels are mushrooming all around and are involved in the spread of fake news as they do not have their own correspondents and they rely completely on some other sources for information, consequently spreading cooked up stories. As far as net neutrality is concerned, it is important to note that there should not be any differential treatment in between different companies in the digital space, and all should be treated equally. Internet-based OTTs has far more reach than the print media and electronic media, and being digital cannot be a ground to immune from the law of the land, keeping in mind the same regulations of OTT is in demand. Next is if a court of law or any government authority finds a content objectionable, then it may pass an order to remove it within 36 hours. However, the process takes ample time, and even though the content is removed, the damage is already done. Further, every common man cannot go to the court as there are an n number of issues. In place of self regulation, there must be an institutional mechanism in place. There must be a dedicated framework for this platform, as presently it is a discretionary power of the authorities which acts on certain companies. So, why OTTs should not be regulated? There are prominent points are made in the counter argument. The first is freedom of speech and expression. Fundamental right under Article 19(1)(a) is enshrined on the citizen of India, which guarantees the freedom of speech and expression. However, it is a remarkable fact that the same comes with reasonable restrictions. In one of the surveys, it has been found out that there is a huge surge in the subscription of the OTT platform, and the same mass is opting out of the DTH services. Ideally, it is under self-governing regulation mode. Now, the profitability clause comes into the picture. As the per capita consumption in India is 12 GB per month approx, which is highest in the world, and putting some restrictions in terms of the regulation on OTT platforms, there are chances that the exchequer would suffer huge losses. Now, as the OTT is in the very beginning part of its development, therefore, it would not be pragmatic to impose regulatory confinement over it. It is the another argument which is put forth, and the same is suggested by the International Telecommunications Union, a body under the United Nations, which also has given guidelines that as the OTT platforms are still evolving, therefore there should not be put up any strict measures to curb its growth. And let us wait and watch till the time it attains maturity. Now the next point which is being made in this regard is when age clarifications, content description, and parental controls are already given in the very beginning part itself, then what is the need to put up another level of filtration? Now, OTT is not regulated in most part of the world. It is also a very important point to note. Most part of the world have not regulated the OTTs and left them free. Then what is the need to stand alone and put up some strict regulations on the OTT platform? Now, if at all the government decides to put up the regulations on the OTT platforms, then it has some inherent challenges in form of the undermentioned points. First is the internet does not have a defined boundary. It is transnational. It transcends the physical boundary of the states. Therefore, to trace the source of the content would be uphill task. Second is it has most of the content flooding from overseas. Therefore, filtering and putting up restriction on these content would be another level of challenge. And certainly, if at all any mechanism is set up, then round the clock monitoring of the same content would be the biggest challenge. Now let us discuss about the present mechanism of regulations for different media platforms in India. The print media is regulated by the Press Council of India. The television space is regulated by the Cable Network Regulation Act 2005. Same way, movies and films are regulated by the Central Board of Film Certification. All the movies, before being released, needed to be produced in front of the Central Board of Film Certification. A clearance certificate has to be obtained from CBFC, then only movies could be released into the theater. Now, the government has proposed in its latest notification Gazette of India that the films, audiovisual programs, news and current affairs content of the OTT will come under the purview of the Information and Broadcasting Ministry. Specifically, these points are mentioned in the Gazette notification published in November 2020. Cable TV Network Regulation Act 1995 may be the template or maybe the model on which the rules would be framed for the OTT. It has been widely anticipated. Now, the important judgments. Let us look at the important judgment which are related to the OTT platforms and online contents. The most important one is Sriya Singhal versus Union of India 2015. So it was related to the online speech and intermediary liability. This landmark case was about the free online speech and intermediary liability. Passing a landmark judgment, the Supreme Court struck down Section 66A of the IT Act, finding it to be ultra vires and infringement of the fundamental rights enshrined by the Constitution of India under Article 19(1). Therefore, this case has some special relevance as far as the online content and freedom of expression and speech is concerned. The Supplementary IT Act 2011 informs the IT Act guidelines requires internet service providing companies to remove any objectionable content within 36 hours of being notified by the authorities that is deemed to have objectionable content. For example, defamatory, hateful, infringes copyrights, and harmful to minors. So, lastly, it would be interesting to see the measures adopted by the government in front of the populist demand. That's all in this edition. Thank you so much for listening and give it a thumbs up if you like the content. Jai Hind.